Tonight on GamePlan.
We got bigger game.
The Saints are big game hunting, and after surviving a gauntlet of 2018 playoff opponents, an upstart Tampa Bay team comes to town after putting up a franchise-best 55 points in a win against the Rams.
And Ndamukong Suh, a former Ram, is in the end zone to seal it for Tampa Bay.
We're previewing this showdown for NFC South supremacy, studying the film on Teddy Bridgewater, and discussing the state of the black and gold as the second quarter of the 2019 season rolls around.
From Fox 8 Sports, this is GamePlan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
The second quarter of the Saints season is upon us. Next on the docket, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for the first time, the black and gold will play a game at noon. Welcome to Game Plan with Juan. I'm Sean.
I thought high noon games were reserved for the commoners. Being a part of the early kickoffs is no big deal for a Saints team that's trying to keep the winning without Drew Brees going.
It's great to be back to work this week. Get a chance to continue to build and keep some of this momentum that we have. Of course, after watching the tape, we found some things that we can get better at, and we're going to continue to address those areas. But we're excited to come away with the win that we had last week, and we're excited to be moving forward. And we know that we have a tough opponent coming in this week in Tampa, coming off a huge win for themselves. So we understand that it's going to be a physical game, it's going to be a battle, and it's one that we have to prepare well for.
Hey, by the way, here's today's injury report. Guys that did not practice, obviously Drew Brees, safety J.T. Gray, and defensive end Trey Hendrickson dealing with a neck issue. Limited, Traquan Smith, Will Clapp, Andrews Pete, Cam Jordan, and Von Bell. He's got a back. This game looked a whole lot easier earlier this season. Now, not so much. The Bucs are playing with some serious confidence.
And you know, Juan, this is always a game where crazy things seem to happen. Bottom line, this team is dangerous, and the Saints know it.
There's a new regime in Tampa Bay. Bruce Arians is now running the show, and his presence seems to have had an impact on quarterback Jameis Winston.
Whatever they ask him to do, I think he's doing it at a high level. And sometimes guys, it's important for him to be in the right fit, and so maybe that's what it is.
Whatever the reason, Winston has found his groove over the last 2 weeks. Against the Rams, he threw for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, en route to putting up 55 points in L.A. last week.
Smart, make all the throws, very aware in the pocket, knows where to go with the football, a good game manager. So we're going to can make plays with his arm and his legs. So we got to come out ready to play good football.
He has a lot of skill at his disposal. At wide receiver, the tag team of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin wreak havoc. Together, they have 8 touchdowns on the season.
Well, they're explosive at receiver. I think their offensive line's playing a lot better, physical. They do a good job with mixing the run and the pass, but I think their explosiveness and the depth they have at that position is impressive.
At tight end, the duo of Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard can be dynamic, while Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber share the load at running back. Defensively, Tampa is at the top of the league at stopping the run, and they also get after the quarterback. Shaquille Barrett has come from out of nowhere to dominate. He leads the league with 9 sacks through 4 games.
When you see a guy with 9 sacks in 4 games, you have to, highlight him. He's a guy who stands out on film. He also has an interception. So he's a guy who's making plays on that defense, and we're well aware of him. And we understand we have to know where he is on the field.
Barrett and Godwin both missed practice Wednesday for the Bucs, while rookie and former LSU linebacker Devin White was limited. White missed the last 2 games for the Buccaneers.
Which means the Saints may be getting the Bucs at the right time because of all of these injuries, because you know what? That's a lot for the Saints to prepare for this week. But you can bet that the Bucs aren't just focusing on themselves this week. They know what's happened the past 2 weeks with Drew Brees on the sideline. They know that the Saints have a ton of weapons at Teddy Bridgewater's disposal. And they also know that the Saints defense has been a very game unit this season. So much so that they can decide the outcome of the game anytime they're on the field. But head coach Bruce Arians' first concern, playing in the Dome, isn't so big anymore because the Bucs have won on the road twice already this season.
Yeah, it doesn't look as bad right now. You got one under your belt. We've got 2 big road wins, so we know we can handle crowd noise, and we know we can handle the road. So it's not as daunting as it was back in August, and when you look at it. Obviously, anytime you go to New Orleans, it's different. It's probably the loudest and hardest place to play because great noise, but a great team.
And if you recall last season, Tampa shocked the Saints to start the year in the Dome, 48-40. You know, Bucs players will use that as motivation.
Yeah, look, it seems like a simple formula for Tampa against the Saints.
It would seem like it would all be very simple, and it would all start with quarterback Jameis Winston. But Bruce Arians said his team is built to run the ball and stop the run. And he believes if they can do both on Sunday, that they will win the game. It's a pretty simple formula for success for every NFL team, but you got to be able to pull it off, though.
We'll see what happens. We know this. They can certainly stop the run. Up next, time to talk tape. We break down what exactly went wrong on the Saints' last offensive play Sunday night against the Cowboys. And you can have Saints Talk on demand with the Fox 8 Overtime podcast. We just released our weekly preview of the weekend ahead in South Louisiana football for the pros, college, and prep. So subscribe, rate, and review it. You can find our podcast on fox8live.com, the Final Play app, and wherever you listen to your podcast.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
We found out today that former Saint Will Smith will be inducted into the Saints Ring of Honor on Sunday. The Saints drafted Smith in 2004. He spent his entire career in New Orleans before retiring after the 2014 season. He was tragically killed in 2016. Smith's 67.5 sacks are still the 5th most in team history, and he'll take his rightful place next to 5 other former Saints: Morton Anderson, Ricky Jackson, Archie Manning, Willie Roaf, and the late Tom Benson. The Cowboys sacked Teddy Bridgewater 5 times Sunday night, including a big one on the Saints' final snap on offense.
Yes, one very, very, very dangerous play. Sean Payton blamed himself for the play call. What the film showed was from the call to the execution, it was a bust all the way around.
Fazan's Film Breakdown is brought to you by GMC. See your local GMC dealer.
The Saints are in their 11 personnel of 3 receivers, a tight end, and a back. The route design on this play is Ted Ginn Jr. lined up on the outside left will run a go. Jared Cook lined up on the line will run a dig, and Michael Thomas will release behind Cook and run an in at about 12 yards. On the opposite side, Austin Carr is running a slant, but his real purpose is to pick the defender lined up over Alvin Kamara. Kamara will run a wheel route. The hope is the pick or the rub will give him just enough space to get open. But on the snap, Carr gets jammed hard at the line and can't get enough depth to pick on number 27 cornerback Jordan Lewis. Thus, Kamara is covered. At the line of scrimmage, the Saints' protection was not good. The Cowboys ran another twist where Malik Collins goes left and Kerry Hyder twists underneath him. And Jalen Smith, lined up between the two players, blitzes the opposite B gap. Larry Warford does not handle the pressure well, and Hyder gets in Bridgewater's face. Teddy doesn't have a throw, but he didn't throw it away and risk an intentional grounding. Instead, he held the ball. Then he retreated backwards before Smith sacks him. The lost yardage knocked the Saints out of field goal range and could have been costly.
So as we said, just a poorly executed play all the way around. Fortunately for the Saints, the defense was able to close things out and win the game.
And not surprisingly, Sean Payton took the blame for that play call and for putting Teddy Bridgewater in a bad situation at a crucial time in the game. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, Payton is hoping that Marcus Davenport continues building towards his best game as a Saint. Sunday against the Cowboys, Davenport was the best defensive end on the field for the Saints. He certainly got the closest to sacking Dak Prescott, and he was a constant threat in the Cowboys' backfield. Payton said although Davenport's shown some progress in his development, there's still a lot more for him to learn.
I think last night particularly well. You know, we got a little bit more snaps when Trey went down. There's still some technique things I know Ryan's working with him on relative to leverage and alignment. But, you know, I think we're beginning to see a more consistent player as well. And so it's encouraging. I'm encouraged.
We all get caught up in the numbers. Davenport's still searching for his 2nd sack of the season, but his effort is giving the Saints plenty to like thus far.
Look, he does have that 1 sack, but look, it's a new age, so new stats. He pressures the quarterback. Yeah. Constant pressure on the quarterback is certainly a good thing. Still to come, our own Jeff Duncan joins us in studio. Hear his thoughts on the offensive approach with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm of the Saints offense. Stay with us.
watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
What originally looked like maybe a trap game, when they put 55 points up on the Rams, that's not a trap. That means you have to come and play, because these guys are, they have a pretty good team. And you talk about having the league leader, Shaquille Barrett. He's leading the league in sacks. He has 9 sacks this year, so that's a good ball team. They've always had skill players. They're physical up front with their D-line and their offensive line, so you're going to have to play.
Saints Hall of Famer Deuce McAllister will be with us Sunday morning at 10 a.m. to preview the game, and Sunday night at 10:30 to wrap it all up. Come Monday, you can catch Deuce at 8 a.m., 5 p.m., and 10:35 right here. All of that right here on Fox 8. Always nice to have with us Jeff Duncan from The Athletic and also a contributor here at Fox 8 Sports. What do you make of the way Sean Payton has really had to kind of change the offensive game plan because of Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback compared to what he would have done with Drew at the spot?
Well, look, I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's calling a different game than he would with Drew Brees in the game. He's tailored this offensive package. He and Pete Carmichael, Joe Lombardi, veteran offensive staff, tailoring it to his strengths. I think they've done a really good job of keeping balance in the attack and kind of, I don't want to say protecting Teddy Bridgewater, but they're basically trying to not put as much pressure on him to win the game. They're relying on their defense, relying on their special teams, other aspects of the game besides Teddy Bridgewater, and having a patient approach with him to where they can bring him along slowly because they know it's a new offense. They know he hasn't played a lot of relevant football in the last few years. And I think it's worked well, but it's helped that they've always been on schedule. They haven't been playing from behind very much. They've had control of the game, if you will. And I think it's helped Teddy Bridgewater's cause a lot.
I think that's really helped his cause, is that they've never trailed. They only trailed once in the second half against Dallas last week. But it's a mindset with Peyton. We always think of Sean Payton, daring, aggressive, foot on the gas, go for it, press a defense. But with Teddy, he's been more modest, more conservative, more ball control, and it helps that the defense and special teams have obviously stepped up and helped the offense. So I think overall, it's been a change in mindset for Sean Payton. He's never had to do it before. He's doing it now, and it's working.
What hasn't helped Teddy or any of this offense is the offensive line. What's going on with their struggles right now? We're talking about penalties, and just at the wrong time when the offense makes a positive play.
Very, very uncharacteristic. I mean, a year ago, I wrote a lot about the offensive line not having penalties. I mean, they really were at a rate that was unprecedented in the history of the NFL, at least penalized. So it's very unusual to have them committing penalties at this rate. I really think a lot of it has to do with the opposition. They played some of the top defensive lines in the league, some of the top defensive linemen in the league, and frankly, they're just getting beat one-on-one right now. They got to play better. I don't think it has a lot to do with a new quarterback or a new center. When you're holding, that doesn't have anything to do with a cadence. So they've got to play better, and I think they're going to get challenged this week by Sean Payton.
It doesn't have to do with the officials either. I mean, I went back and watched. Most of those penalties were legit. I mean, even with the new emphasis on holding or what have you, those penalties would have been called any year. So they got to play better. It's more of a focus thing, a concentration thing. They're just getting sloppy with their technique. Larry Warford in particular has not played well. This is about as rough a stretch as he's had since he's been in New Orleans. They've got to figure this out. They got to look in the mirror, man to man, and just realize they're not playing well enough. They just got to do better.
The Saints defense, especially that defensive line, they've been playing lights out. What's been the difference with that group this year? In a situation where we weren't sure we were going to get out of this team when the season began, that unit.
Well, I don't know if I expected them to be good. I think it's the strength of the defense. Cam Jordan's the best defensive player on the team. We've got another year of development with Marcus Davenport. Malcolm Brown, I think, has been a little bit of a revelation. He's a little bit more of a pass rusher than I thought he would be. I think the return of Sheldon Rankins makes this defensive line the best unit they've had since maybe 2000 when Roy Glover, Joe Johnson, Norman Hand, that group set records for sacks. I think they can stack up with any defensive line in the league.
A lot of different things kind of colliding here. You got the development of Marcus Davenport. He looks more comfortable standing up the edge. The development of Trey Hendrickson. Cam is always going to be Cam. Sheldon Rankins are coming back. Malcolm Brown and David Onyemata, two incredibly underrated players on this roster. A guy like Shai Tuttle, who we really didn't expect much out of it. I didn't really see a whole lot about it in the preseason. All of a sudden, he's giving quality snaps. I mean, they had to make Mario Edwards a healthy scratch. He was one of your premier free agent signings this offseason. So, absolutely, they've surpassed expectations. They're knocking on the door right now. If they can do it for a few more games of elite status.
Bucs score 55 points in their last game on the road at the Rams. We know they can score some points. It's going to be quite a test for this secondary once again.
Yeah, Mike Evans, Godwin, who did not practice, Brait, O.J. Howard. They have 2 running backs. Jameis Winston's the kind of guy that can light you up, and he is not afraid to throw the 50-50 ball. Unlike Teddy, he is not afraid to make a risky throw. So if you're the Saints, you might give up a few, but hopefully you can get a few as well, because Winston can give you some gifts.
Much greater challenge this week than what they faced last week. I felt like the Cowboys were a little overhyped, a little overrated, especially their passing attack. Very limited, especially without Gallup. Now you've got a whole different animal you're trying to deal with. A lot of great skill position players, like Sean said, and an offensive mastermind in Bruce Arians who likes to go downfield.
Loves it.
And we've seen that before with this Bucs team. They're going to challenge the Saints in the deep passing game. They didn't see that at all from the Cowboys.
One final thing. On the Bucs defensive side of the ball, Shaq Barrett's a beast. 9 sacks in 4 games, but he's got a groin issue right now. Saints are keeping a close eye on that. That's a huge loss if he can't play.
I don't know where he's come from. I mean, this guy has lit the league on fire. I mean, he's arguably the most dominant defensive player in the first quarter of the season. He's on pace for 36 sacks.
Yeah.
As Sean Payton said today, it's like hitting 500 in baseball, what he's doing. They will have a plan for Shaq Barrett, whether he's 80% or 100%. They've done it before. I think it's a little easier to have a plan for a defensive end, outside edge rusher than it is for an interior guy like Aaron Donald. So they'll have a plan for him.
He's exceptional, and like you said, out of nowhere. I had to check my notes. Where did he come from? I just don't remember this guy at all. And I went back and watched some tape. We'll have some film study on him in our tailgate special Sunday morning. It's not fluky.
No.
Spin moves, beating double teams, power moves. He's got it all. So he's got to be ready. If he doesn't play, he'll catch a break.
All right, we'll leave it right there with Jeff Duncan from The Athletic and here at Fox 8. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Appreciate that. Still to come on Game Plan, have injuries impacted your fantasy roster? Don't you panic. Chris Hagan will show you how to handle those tough circumstances next. And Saints fans who want to see their team spirit on television can head to the Final Play app to submit a picture. Just click the menu, scroll down to the Submit Your Saints Picks page, and follow directions. Tune in throughout the season to see your Who Dat passion on display.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
The Jekyll and Hyde that is Jameis Winston. Which will the Saints see on Sunday? The guy that paced the offense to a franchise-best 55 points against the Rams last weekend, or the guy that has the propensity to throw the untimely interception? 3 of his picks have been returned for touchdowns, including 1 in that game against the Rams. And overall, the Bucs are 1-5 when he throws a pick 6. He's thrown 7 of them since he came into the league back in 2015, which is the 4th most for quarterbacks in that stretch.
The Keys to the Game is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers in the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
If you picked up the right backup quarterback, you might be leading your fantasy football league right now.
It is the year of the backup QB in the NFL. You know that. But injuries are part of football, even fantasy football. To help navigate how to manage such inconveniences on your roster, here's Chris Hagan with his extra point.
If your fantasy team hasn't performed as well as you'd like up to this point, the good news is there's still plenty of hope. Even if you're 1-3, there's room to bounce back, though your margin for error is a little bit smaller. Keep in mind, though, that in most leagues, a 7-6 regular season record is usually good enough to be in the playoff conversation. The first order of business at this point, as more injuries happen and bye weeks occur, be mindful of the waiver wire and seeing who's available after their bye week. Some players get dropped, so I check to see if the following are out there. Starting with the 49ers, running back Tevin Coleman. He was productive during the few Week 1 snaps that he had, but Coleman's been sidelined ever since with an ankle sprain. The 49ers remained optimistic about him, and owners who did the same could soon be rewarded. He may play this week against Cleveland, but I'd say he's a pretty sure bet for Week 6 against the Rams. Here's to hoping that Kyle Shanahan's able to successfully bring Coleman back to his rookie form when he coached him in Atlanta. Staying with the same team, how about quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo? Especially after an ugly Week 3 performance against Pittsburgh, Jimmy G may have been dropped by a lot of owners. However, brighter days will come. The 49ers' next 7 games are against the Browns, Rams, Washington, Panthers, Cardinals, Seahawks, and then the Cardinals again. Not too many of those secondaries would scare me. Even the Rams were torched by Jameis Winston in Week 4. So if you're streaming quarterbacks or your starter has a bye week coming up, you could certainly do worse than Garoppolo. After the bye week freebies, there are some other guys that aren't on a lot of rosters that are still floating out there to be claimed. I like Falcons wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. He's not a huge red zone target or a big play guy like Julio Jones, but he's pretty consistent for about 10 points each week in PPR leagues. If you need a filler, why not? He's had at least 5 catches and 50 yards in 3 of 4 games. And with Atlanta frequently playing from behind, he's likely to stay around that level of production. I also like Cowboys wide receiver Michael Gallup eventually. The number 2 receiver in Dallas should be back from injury soon, and hopefully he picks up where he left off in terms of target share. He caught 13 of 15 targets from Dak Prescott in weeks 1 and 2, and they certainly could have used him last week against New Orleans. Gallup makes his living against a lot of single coverage, with defenses giving his fellow receiver Amari Cooper a lot more attention. He's owned in about 64% of ESPN leagues, so check for him if you're in need at receiver. And finally, Giants receiver Golden Tate. He's free from suspension, and lucky for you, he's only owned in 52% of ESPN leagues. Tate is a terrific slot receiver that the Giants signed in the offseason for a reason. He could develop into a solid target for Daniel Jones at quarterback, and I'd bet he becomes a solid PPR option. As you can tell by this list, the waiver wire is a bit bare, but Tate is one of the few players that I think has real upside. As always, be sure to use the Final Word feature of the Final Play app to submit any fantasy questions you have heading into Week 5. Reporting for GamePlan, I'm Chris Hagan.
Our coverage certainly does not stop here. Lots more football on Fox 8 this week. Tomorrow night, Rams and Seahawks. Friday, we'll switch to the high school gridiron for Fox 8 football Friday at 10:35. Sunday morning, wake up with us. Fox 8 Live Tailgate, 10 a.m., getting you ready for kickoff. The Saints and the Bucs at high noon. Stick around for the Cowboys and Packers after that. Our reports begin on Fox 8 News at 9, leading up to the final play at 10:30.
And of course, you can always get in touch with us using the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. That'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for watching Game Plan. And thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.